Mac and cheese, the game needs to go up, right? Hi, I'm Mark Scarbrough, half of the cookbook writing team, Bruce Weinstein and Mark Scarbrough, who wrote the Instant Pot authorized cookbook, Instant Pot Bible, The Next Generation. And I'm making a recipe today out of that book, wow, for a hamburger mac and cheese. Okay, so let's get rolling. Here's the thing. I've got my Instant Pot already heating. It's on the saute setting. You want this on medium, normal, depending on what your machine reads. I should mention that I'm working in a 6-quart Instant Pot. Okay, so first, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a tablespoon of butter. That's about, I don't know, 15 grams of butter. While that butter melts, you don't have to wait for it to completely melt, not at all. Put 1 medium yellow or white onion chopped in there. If you're gonna buy pre-chopped onion or even frozen chopped onion, what you want is a cup to a cup and a quarter, somewhere right in that area. And this, I just wanna saute it a little bit so that it gets just softened. You know that pressure is gonna take care of the onion. It's gonna basically melt it into this mac and cheese. So this is just to get it, a little head start, get the onion a little buttery. So we'll wait about a minute for that to happen. So here's the one fussy little thing. You want to use a pound or 450 grams of lean ground beef. Why do I want it to be lean? Because there's very little evaporation, of course, that's going to happen here. And if I use fatty ground beef, this is going to get really kind of soupy fatty. And so crumble in your ground beef. I got a pound, or as I say, about 450 grams of it. Crumble it in there. You don't have to get fancy about this. We just want to get it kind of in the pot. In pasta casseroles like this one, because the pasta is going to go right in the pot, Bruce and I have found that it's best when you're working with ground beef just to stir it around until it loses its raw pink color. Don't worry about it being cooked through. The pressure is going to take care of that. It's kind of better just until it loses that raw color on it, but you don't have to go crazy with cooking it. Okay, it's close enough. You see I've kind of lost that red look. There's still pink going on in there. Don't worry about it. It's gonna cook fully under pressure. Have no fear. So let me add my spices. Here's what I'm gonna put in here. I'm gonna put in a teaspoon of dried oregano. And by the way, I believe dried spices work better in this recipe. And then I have got a half a teaspoon of mild paprika. Want to up this thing? Then use hot paprika. Want to up it even farther? Then use smoked paprika, and I got a half teaspoon of salt. So that's going to go in there. And then I have some nutmeg. I know some people don't like nutmeg, but I think it's really good in cheesy casseroles like this. And I'm going to grate my nutmeg. Oh, I'm so fancy. If you already have ground nutmeg in a jar, consider about 1/8 of a teaspoon is what you want. If you're grating it in, maybe up to 1/4 teaspoon. If you really like nutmeg in it, I add it a lot because I love nutmeg. It's not just for eggnog, you know. All right, so mix those spices around just a little bit. And now what you want to do is you want to pour in the broth. I have here 2 cups or 475 milliliters of chicken broth. And it goes. And now the trick, not just the ground beef, but there's a second trick here. And that is we want this to get a little hot. So I'm gonna stir this around, and then I'm gonna wait for this broth to get a little bit steamy. Why? Because I'm gonna add the pasta to this, and if the broth is already steamy, the pasta won't stick to the bottom and you won't get a burn notice. You let those liquids get hot, and that way when the pasta hits, it doesn't automatically start to sink in the colder broth, but it comes up. You know when it's simmering, no worries, no worries. Just steamy is what you're looking for. So we're gonna give this a couple minutes to get a little steamy. Okay, see that? That's what I want, just a little bit of steam. Now I'm gonna add 8 ounces or 225 grams of medium raw shell pasta. So look at the size here, look at it in my hand. You can kind of see the size of this. And don't use tiny, tiny little shells, and don't use the big shells that you might stuff. This is just medium shell, dry, regular pasta. You can make this gluten-free. If you wanna make it gluten-free, here's my suggestion. Don't use a pasta that is made only of rice. Use one of those pastas that's made with a mix of flours like corn flour, tapioca flour, sometimes rice flour in there, but that blend up of flours works better with this recipe, and the timings won't change at all from what I'm doing. Okay, that goes in. Now I'm gonna stir it up lightly, but not a lot. I'm gonna keep most of this pasta right up on top. So just lightly, just so that pasta got a little bit wet. Now I'm gonna put my glasses on to know what I'm doing. I'm turning off the saute function. I want pressure cook on high for 6 minutes. And I'm ready to go. So I've started it. Let me tell you one more thing while we wait for this thing to come to pressure. Make sure your valve is closed on whatever model of Instant Pot you're working on. If you have a max machine, you can do this on max for 5 minutes. All other pots, high for 6 minutes. Then a quick release and one more step after that. Okay, that's it. We're ready to release the pressure. Here we go, quick release. Okay, while the last of the steam is coming out of the pot, I just want to say that I used, if you remember, oregano, paprika, salt, and you know, I used those herb mixes and then, of course, my nutmeg. But of course, you can change this to your heart's desire. You could use a teaspoon of dried Italian seasoning blend. You could use a teaspoon of dried jerk seasoning blend if you want really hot mac and cheese. You could change this up in any way that you would like with those spices and alter the flavor. And one other thing, you don't want to use butter at the beginning. I don't know why you don't want to use butter at the beginning, but of course you can use olive oil at the beginning. You just want a nice flavorful fat at the bottom of it all so that, you know, it's extra rich and yummy. Okay, we are out. Let's look at it. Wow. You'll notice that it's a little bit soupy still, just a little. There's a little bit of liquid left in here. Don't worry. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to turn the pot on its saute setting, and I want this to come up to a little bubble before I add the rest of my ingredients. I want you to add 3/4 of a cup or 180 milliliters of heavy cream. Can you use light cream? Yes. Can you use half and half? Yes. Can you use whole milk? Why? Come on. This is mac and cheese. Get that in there and stir it in for extra richness sake, and then wait again for this to come back to a little bit of a simmer. Okay, so now it's simmering, got a nice bubble going. So let it simmer about 1 minute. You'll notice that the pasta has leached a little starch, which it does, into the sauce, and it's thickened it up just slightly, and we're there. Okay, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna turn off my saute setting, and then I'm gonna add 5 ounces or 140 grams of shredded, sharp American cheddar cheese. Now that I got my cheese on there, you'll notice that it's still bubbling away. So what you want to do is you want to take this out because the pot is really super insulated and it holds heat really well and the pasta can stick. So lift out the insert. Notice I've used a towel to lift out the insert. Lift out the insert and this will stop all the bubbling from happening. The cheese is on top. We want it to melt. I'll put the lid on top of it for 3-5 minutes, something like that. And then I'll stir it up and we'll taste it. Before I do that, rate this video. Subscribe to our cooking channel, Cooking with Bruce and Mark. Give us a rating. Tell us how we're doing. Check out below me. The recipe is right down there. You don't have to go buy the book. It's here on this recipe. There are 349 more in the book, but you don't have to buy it. It's right below me. Rate it, subscribe. We're gonna do recipes every week as we've been doing. Come on, be our friend. We'll be your friend. Okay, we are ready to taste it now. Let me tell you one more thing. I got so much to say. Let me tell you one more thing. When you take the insert out and put the lid on it like this to melt the cheese, sometimes you can get some suction here and it can be hard to pull off, see? So that's because of that inner ring that's so nicely insulated. Oh, there we are. Stir this up, stir that cheese into the mac and cheese. You know what? I could use a plate, but why? I'm gonna do what I would do if I were at home and just eat it out of the pot like I usually do. Oh, it looks really steamy and hot. Come on. This is a meal. You know, sometimes mac and cheese, I love mac and cheese. It's comfort food deluxe. But sometimes it's not a full meal. Just when I'm sick and I want mac and cheese. And sometimes just for dinner, it's not a full meal. And by adding hamburger and nice spices to it, I've turned it into this kind of hamburger casserole. That's mac and cheese. By the way, this will set up for the next 5 to 10 minutes. More and more liquid will be absorbed. If you want it even thicker, you can set it aside. that's a good thing about this. You could make this and then, you know, throw a salad together while this is sitting. But so subscribe, like, rate this video, do all the things you do, but mostly just make some mac and cheese in your Instant Pot because yum, totally worth it.